Grace and peace, you guys. Welcome back to Unshakable with April Chapman. Happy 4th of July holiday. Today, what I want to do is I want to talk about the landmark ruling. The Supreme Court recently made their decision on birthright citizenship, and we have to talk about it because this is a very controversial decision, and I understand why conservatives would be upset, and I kind of understand why a lot of liberals are celebrating, but I don't believe this is the loss that we believe it is, and I don't believe it is the win that the liberals think it is. It can be, but what I want to do is attempt to unpack it today. So first, let's bring you guys up to speed with what actually happened, and then I'll come back and provide my commentary.
Supreme Court today gutted one of President Trump's signature policies, rejecting his effort to end birthright citizenship as we know it. In attacking that 150-year-old right, the Trump administration argued it, quote, degrades the meaning and value of American citizenship and doesn't work in a modern world where, quote, 8 billion people are one plane ride away from having a child who's a U.S. citizen. But Chief Justice John Roberts rejected those arguments in a 26-page majority opinion, while Justice Samuel Alito, in dissent, called this one of the most important decisions in the history of the court and a serious mistake. Chief Legal Correspondent Jan Crawford has been digging into this ruling since the moment it came down and joins us again. Jan, good evening.
Well, good evening, Tony. The court said that the framers of the 14th Amendment extended the promise of citizenship to almost, quote, every free person born in this land, rejecting President Trump's efforts to rewrite the Constitution with the stroke of a pen. In one of the first executive orders of his second term, on Inauguration Day, President Trump tried to end birthright citizenship. Today, after the Supreme Court rejected his effort in a forcefully worded opinion, he called the ruling too bad for our country and urged Congress to take action immediately. Trump had argued the 14th Amendment was intended to grant citizenship to freed slaves and their descendants after the Civil War, not to the 250,000 babies born every year to people here illegally or temporarily. But in the decision by Chief Justice John Roberts, joined by Trump appointee Amy Coney Barrett and the 3 liberal justices, the court said, under the Constitution, they are citizens at birth. Juan Perano, CEO of LULAC, cheered the ruling.
I mean, the stakes are 400,000 to 500,000 children born in the United States to parents that may be undocumented, or at least in the process of getting legal status in the United States. All those children born would not have been U.S. citizens, and they would have been stateless.
Now, the decision means that the court ruled against 2 of President Trump's major initiatives. Earlier this term, they struck down his tariffs policy, and today, birthright citizenship. Tony?
All right. So, in listening to the news kind of articulate what happened, I have a few thoughts on this, and I see both sides of it. Okay. So before you crash out, I do agree that this is too bad for America. So essentially what Donald Trump was trying to do in his executive order was like, look, I'm America first, and I want to protect the interests of America and Americans by doing something by executive order to make sure that all of these people that the Biden administration let into the country do not try to lay claim to the actual American inheritance and American birthright. Like, it means something to be an American. You don't just get to come here and scratch through the fence and say, as an American now. There's a process to this. There are steps to this. Bloodshed had to happen in order for America to be what it is. It's a very unique America. America is just a unique nation in that we've asserted our rights given to us by God, and we have a constitution. And I understand what Donald Trump was trying to do by way of executive order. However, this Supreme Court decision with Justice Roberts leading in, the majority opinion, he's kind of saying, look, in order for you guys to determine the future America and what America will be, Congress needs to act. You cannot do this by way of executive order. Now, I understand why Donald Trump tried to do it via executive order, but the Supreme Court has ruled that, listen, children born here in the United States, unfortunately, to parents who unlawfully or are here temporarily for whatever reason, are still subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. And somehow they are tying that to the 14th Amendment. Unfortunately, the court has rejected Donald Trump's attempt. Trump was trying to narrow birthright citizenship through executive order to include foundational Black Americans and people who are here lawfully and are born here. Supreme Court is like, look, we get it done. You're America first, but you can't attempt to redefine citizenship with the strike of a pen. So, two thoughts can be held at once. America absolutely has a serious immigration problem. No one is arguing that. You've got the birth tourism industry. You've got all of these legal immigrants coming here, and that was a real issue. And we know the Democrats have absolutely exploited that system. However, the majority opinion, now I don't really count what the three leftist liberals on the court are saying, but I understand what Judge Roberts is trying to say. He is trying to argue that constitutionally, citizenship is not something that the president can just edit with his pen. Just because the border's been turned into a Motel 6 with better benefits, he can't just do that. So here's what the real question now becomes. If America, if conservatives, if you want birthright citizenship narrowed, this is something that's going to require legislation. You're going to have some sort of statutory clarification, i.e., a constitutional amendment, or Congress is going to have to pass it and get it to the president's desk, and he will sign it. They're like, look, take it up through the constitutional process. Trump cannot do this by way of executive order. So I think we should get out of our feelings for a second. Why? Because the reason what makes America so great is the fact that we do have this checks and balance system. The president can't just, with the strike of a pen, do whatever he wants. The courts are there to provide guardrails, and then Congress is there also to keep the other two branches in check. That is what makes our country so amazing. So the Supreme Court is saying, pass this through Congress, keep the daggone border closed. If you don't want these people in, then you need to do what you're supposed to do to make sure that Consuela doesn't get here at 38 weeks pregnant, and then all of a sudden she goes into labor at the border right when she crosses it and says, my baby's an American. Do what you're supposed to do. Make sure your legislators are upholding the law and do not allow Maria or Mfufu to come here when she's barely 6 weeks pregnant and allow her to hide in the interior of this country and then drop a baby here. This is not hard to get passed through the House. I know for a fact we can get it passed through the House of Representatives, but where we're going to struggle is trying to get this passed through the Senate. So we're at a turning point in this nation where Americans, you and I, we're going to have to decide, what kind of country do you want to become? Do you want to become a little Somalia? Do you want to become a little Haiti? Do you want America to look like Europe, where they've let all of these immigrants come in and effectively change their culture to now everybody's hot and broke, and there's no such thing. I don't even know what it means to be a European anymore. If this is what you want America to become, where being American simply means you could just scratch through the fence and let anybody come over here to exploit us for our resources. Furthermore, these people, as you know, they refuse to assimilate. They want to hold on to the country of their origin, and they don't really want to be Americans. They just want to pillage and exploit what America has to offer. So if you're going to let these people try to come in and turn us into that, then unless the American people step up and elect U.S. senators who are American first, then you're going to look like Europe. And it's no longer going to be America the beautiful, the land of the free, and the home of the brave. That's essentially what Justice Roberts is saying. We get what you're trying to do, Trump, but you can't change something like this with the stroke of the pen. You've got to get Congress to act. And if Congress was doing what they supposed to do, we wouldn't be here in the first place. So that means people like John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock need to go. So if we, the American people, stop electing Marxists and communists, we wouldn't be here where we are. So that was the one thing that I wanted to highlight. I understand Trump saying, look, this degrades the meaning of what it means to be an American. I agree. You get no argument out of me there. However, it is comforting to see the checks and balances of our three branches of government work like they're supposed to work. I would have loved for Trump to be like, nah, hell to the nah, we not doing this. But what happens when you get a Democrat who's in office and attempts using the stroke of a pen, kind of like Biden did when he let all these people in here to try to do what he wants to do? You have to have the other branches of government have to keep the other two powers in check. Now, here's something else that I wanted to highlight in this video. I was so encouraged to listen to a Black American attorney by the name of Dennis Sperling. I am loosely acquainted with attorney Sperling. We have a mutual friend, and I planned to reach out to him soon because I really do want to bring him on the show. He is an incredibly intelligent man, and I like Dennis because we don't agree on everything. We really don't. I'm sure there are so many sources of contention between us, but I can sit down and I can talk to someone like Dennis because he's not going to bring his emotions to the discussion. He is going to think through using logic and reason, and he can win me to his side by just laying out the facts and laying out his case. And I believe that I can win him to my side simply by laying out the facts and laying out the case. But what I want to do here is I want you guys to listen to something that he said. Now, Dennis is way more gracious than I am. I'm so done and frustrated with the whole pro wokety woke blackety black crowd that I'm listen, I just call it like I see it, okay? But I want you to listen to something that he says because the pro wokety woke blackety black crowd, they're mad and have castigated the character and the intentions of Justice Thomas for as long as I can remember. They call him all kinds of names like an Uncle Tom and Uncle Clarence, and that he's anti-black, and that is not true. Dennis Sperling made a YouTube community post that I actually want to share with you guys. And I could see how it gets a lot of the pro wokety woke blackety black crowd in their feelings, but it is brilliantly written. Here's what he says. You may call Justice Clarence Thomas whatever names you choose, but if you actually read his dissent, you will see that he was attempting to preserve a principle that once guaranteed birthright citizenship to our ancestors, our meaning the blacks, people who were brought here in bondage and forced to build this country. Now, I would argue semantically about, yeah, they were kind of brought here in bondage and forced, but a lot of them stayed because they chose not to fight back. But we're getting off topic here. Let's just focus on the main thing. He goes, that right was not casually given. It was earned through suffering, sacrifice, and history. And I'd also say bloodshed. And here's what I mean. When I talk about that bloodshed, I'm talking about the bloodshed in the Civil War of the valiant and brave black men who fought for the Union Army, who was like, listen, I will fight even to my death if necessary for me to lay claim to my inalienable right of freedom given to me by God, not by a white man, but I'm willing to fight him because he's trying to take what God has given me from me. That's what I would add there. Our blood was shed. This is our American birthright. It is our American inheritance. And I'm not about to let no dusty foot immigrant from I don't care what country you come from, and I don't care how much melanin you have or don't have, you're not going to come and lay claim to it just because you think you're entitled to it and deserve it. That is not how this works. And yes, I did call him dusty foot. Okay, be offended. Okay, whatever. Then he goes, many have allowed propaganda and emotion to blind them to that reality. And now, here's the kicker, guys. Unless Congress acts, the power of your vote and your voice may be diminished over time if and when Democrats regain control. Counselor, this line right here is the mic drop, and it's unfortunate that so many of our people are so in bed and they love their master so much, their master, i.e. the Democrats, that this, what you just said, is going to go right over their head. So let me read it again. Then it says, many have allowed propaganda and emotion to blind them to this reality. And now, unless Congress acts, the power of your vote and your voice may be diminished over time if and when Democrats regain control. What is he saying? He's basically saying, look, and if these Democrats get back in power, they're going to open the floodgates in and give everybody who just wants to be an American and smell American oxygen, it's going to let them lay claim to what rightfully belongs to you. You're already been replaced. Okay, it's already happened, and it's going to get worse if the Democrats get back in power. Basically, the Republican Party is trying to say, look, us four no more. We don't have unlimited resources to take care of all of y'all. Democrats are like, look, all we know is keeping people government dependent and giving them free stuff. And we going to give free stuff. Yo, we going to take your money and give free stuff to others who did not earn it or have any rights to it. He goes, stop reacting emotionally. Read the dissent for yourself before forming an opinion. Dennis, I hate to break it to you. It's too many words. It's too many letters on them pages. Them folks are not going to read it because it's going to hurt their brain cells too much. And it's going to force them to think. And unfortunately, some people don't want to do that. You're giving them too much credit, Dennis. They ain't going to read. They ain't going to read it. He goes, whether you agree with him or not, Justice Thomas deserves to be understood before he is condemned. In this instance, he may very well be acting as a true Black hero. I love it. I am glad to see someone celebrate this American patriot, Clarence Thomas, because he's right. He is absolutely right. We have seen so many Black Americans who do not understand Clarence Thomas's story. They've yet to understand why he rules the way that he does. They don't care. They are not interested in the truth. They are interested at being perpetually grieved and hating any and everybody that's not a Democrat. And I think it's funny, they'll make fun of Clarence Thomas because he's married to a white woman. But the matriarchal miscreant, Ketanji Brown Jackson, who's also married to a white guy. Not that there's anything wrong with being in a biracial relationship, but I'm just pointing out the hypocrisy of the side. It's wrong for Clarence. Clarence is a sellout because he married to a white woman, but Ketanji, ain't nothing wrong with her being married to a white man. She could be married to a white man with no backlash. That's the woman who is trying to dilute what it means to be Black and what it means to lay claim to your American birthright and the American inheritance. She's the one that's trying to just give that to everybody else. It's rightfully yours, but she's trying to give that to anybody and everybody else, but she's not the sellout. No. She can't protect women because she don't know what a woman is. And now when it comes time to define what it means to be an American, and when it comes time to narrow and define the authorial intent of the 14th Amendment as it relates to Black Americans in this country, she's trying to get at to Consuela, who comes over here 38 weeks pregnant and just drops a baby, an anchor baby. Shout out to the content creator, attorney Dennis Sperling. I wanted to round out your understanding of the Supreme Court decision. I don't want us to get too bent out of shape, but what this does do is lay the responsibility of the kind of country that we will be. It really rests in the hands of the American people. Basically, Congress has to act. And as long as we have a conservative president, if the executive branch remains with an America First agenda, we don't need to freak out too bad about this decision. Basically, what makes this bad is if the Democrats get back in power again. They are absolutely going to exploit this loophole that the majority opinion has now just let out. And what I believe Justice Roberts is doing, I think he is playing Russian roulette and doesn't really understand the depravity that is in these people. This is going to force America to stand up and say, look, the kind of country we want is not this new America that the left is trying to make us be. So that means come November, when it comes to these Senate races, because the House will pass this easily, we need a filibuster-proof majority again in the Senate. 60 votes. If we can get a filibuster-proof majority in the Senate like Barack Obama had, this is not going to be difficult. The House will pass it. They'll send it to the Senate. It'll go to the president's desk. He will sign it, and we can put this behind us. But if we keep electing these rhinos and these people who do not have America's best interest at heart, this is a very bad thing for America. So I agree with Trump. I understand what the Supreme Court is trying to do. I appreciate the checks and balance, and they're trying to say, look, Trump, we understand what you're trying to do, but you can't do this with the stroke of a Sharpie. I get that too. I see all sides of it, but there are implications to this that are disastrous for the future of America. But Americans are the ones, the ball is in our court. If you elect officials that represent your values and the kind of America that you want to see, then this Supreme Court decision will not be as disastrous as everybody is trying to make it out to be. But I'm curious to know, what do you guys think? I know look, we could be in our feelings all day long. Trump tried. The Supreme Court said, hold my beer, not so fast pimping. But at the end of the day, it's the American people that come in and say, let's just settle this argument once and for all and pass the legislation to define what it means to be an American so that we won't have these anchor babies being dropped over here, becoming Americans and not having to have any sort of skin in the game or shed any blood, sweat, or tears that we and our ancestors went through to lay claim to our American inheritance. So leave me your comments down in the box below. And until next time, you guys, stand firm, stay bold, and above all else, stay unshakable. Grace and peace.